Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and today we're going to be embarking on our mock draft 3.0 for your Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're doing this following the combine, also following the franchise tag deadline. So we just got the news, actually, in my time, just a couple hours ago. Josh Allen has been franchise tagged. Team's probably going to lose Calvin Ridley because of that. Whole nother thing. If you want to hear me rant about it, go watch my most recent video. Jaguars franchise tag Josh Allen is the name of it. You can get more thoughts from that. But this video is going to be a little different from how we usually do mock drafts, because usually I give you guys a scenario and say, well, these are the players I would sign. This is who I'd cut. These are now our needs, right? I really don't know what the Jaguars are going to do. And I want to give the chance to talk about potentially more players and not limit ourselves as much. So how we're going to go about today is we're basically going to take the roster as it is, right? We're not going to factor in free agent signings. We're going to factor in who we currently have, players that could potentially be released, we will consider as needs. So that includes a left or right tackle, depending on where you have Anton taking over, right? Cam Robinson would be a guy we would consider releasable. You also have Brandon Scherf, so right guard would be a need. Zay Jones, I think he's safe, but we will consider it because regardless, he has 1 year left on his deal. So that's the way we're rolling. We're not considering any other players coming back unless they're incredibly obvious. So Ezra Cleveland, Calvin Ridley, Dwan Smoot, Jamal Agnew, guys that we're not going to consider as part of the Jaguars going into this. And honestly, I don't know if a single one of them is part of the Jaguars next year anyway. So that's how we're going to go about this. Now, I was over on offensive line rankings here. Joe Alt is not my number one overall prospect for the whole draft. But I'll show you my big board here really quick. Just want to give you guys an idea of what's changed. There's some players who have really proven a lot from the combine. Top of the board, not as much, right? You don't hear anything. Not many people tested. Odunze and Alt were pretty much the only guys to do it. Both of them perform pretty darn well. But Dallas Turner, Terry and Arnold, big risers for me. And kind of for different reasons. Arnold, he didn't run incredible, but he was really good during the drills. He was great during the drills. And the way he interviewed with teams was incredible. This is a guy that just honestly combining what he's done on the field in this last year, watching him practice, watching how hard he works, and the things that he says and who he is as a person, I can't imagine him being a miss in the draft. This is a surefire star football player. It's just a question of how good he gets. That's where it is to me. But Dallas Turner, you know, you can say stuff about the height. He's about 6'3", just under it. That's not incredible, right? But still, pretty big hands, really good wingspan overall, almost 7 feet. There's a lot to work with there. This is the guy who ran incredibly well. I believe that actually might have been the fastest time of all of our outside linebackers. So closest was 4:48 by Chop Robinson. And Chop Robinson is supposed to be the explosive guy, right? I mean, Dallas Turner beat him at his own game. He has all of the skill set already to be a very good pass rusher. The only question was strength. That's been the question for me since day one of scouting Dallas Turner. And he comes in at 247. I think he fills it out really well. And I consider the fact he is a speed rusher. That is what he is. He's not going to be a power rusher. Sure, he converts speed to power really well. I will say that. But this is just who he is. And I think this is a player that just gets better and better and better. And he's the next great pass rusher in the NFL. Someone we're definitely going to watch. But two players I think have cemented themselves as great prospects. Now, Michael Penix Jr., I'm a big fan of him. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that. I'm a huge fan, and he got really good news this weekend because we figured out that the medicals passed, doesn't have concerns there. A lot of teams saying good stuff about him. And he did really well in drills. Now, drills shouldn't decide everything, right? But still, this is good news. These are good things for Michael Penix that put him on track to be a first-round prospect. And if I'm not worried about the injuries, He's a top 3 quarterback for me. I put him above Jaden Daniels. Just my opinion. They're very close, but I think Michael Penix would be the safer guy if you're not factoring in the injuries. And if he's healthy, if he's cleared from all that, if he can get past it, he's going to be the top guy for me. Now, got some other guys here, right? Talise Fuaga, been really high on my board. I have him as a guard officially. A lot of it comes down to my concerns with the way he plays, and also the fact that he doesn't have like this overwhelming wingspan. I mean, you look at like his arm length, it's just over what you'd ask from a pass rusher, which are the guys he goes up against. So a lot of the time, he's going to be pretty much average as far as how he matches up against the guy, or just outnumbered as far as how long his arms are. And that's a disadvantage for him, right? If you kick him inside, you get rid of those problems. And you also get rid of the concerns about him being able to block around the edge. I think this guy, if you pick him and you play him at guard, he's going to be an elite guard right out of the gates. Great run blocker, great pass blocker. And he's worth a top 10 selection to be that. I just don't think a team plays him at guard, personally. Then you got Byron Murphy, just a freak athlete. Sure, he's not tall, but this guy has the most insane leverage you'll ever see. And he has a hell of a motor and a pass rush arsenal. All stuff you love to see. Jared Verse, I think, really cemented himself as one of the safest players in this class and has a lot of upside. Whoever gets him is going to be happy they have him, right? And then probably the last guys I'll talk about, because I could just go on forever talking about my big board. But A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr., both had really good performances, ran really fast. I should note Quinyon Mitchell actually beat them both. That's just a testament to how good of a prospect he is. And we could talk a lot about him too. I'll just kind of forego it because we have before we've picked him on the channel. But you look at A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr., you measure so many of these numbers against each other. They're so close in so many metrics. I think it's just a matter of Brian Thomas Jr. being slightly better in most of them. And then you got to watch the tape. And you got to see the kind of players they are. I have A.D. Mitchell higher right now, and I'll do more evaluation to see if it stays that way, because I think he's a better route runner. I think he sets up his routes better. I think as well that he is a better catcher right now. But there are concerns about his motor. There are concerns about him doing that 100% of the time. And so he's probably a guy that, even though I have him at 13th, I want a value at my pick. I want a guy that shouldn't be there. I would probably move back a couple spots and still try to get him if that's how the board fell. That's where I'm at right now. Even though he's 13th and we picked 17th, I'd still probably try to trade back a couple spots in an area where wide receivers aren't really going, and then hope a team doesn't trade up. It's a risk, right? But it's a risk you can consider. So that's the big board. So got a lot of needs going in this. Want to make that clear? And I want to make it clear as well, we are not going to be able to fill all these needs. So you guys can be like, hey, you didn't get a cornerback. We're screwed at that position. You're right. We are, because there's nothing we can do to fix it unless we're going to trade all our future picks. The point is we are going to pick the best players that could possibly fit needs for this team. And we have a limited arsenal of what we can do it with. And next video, when we do this again, our mock draft 4.0, we'll have some free agent signings. We'll be able to go off that, and we'll really know more about what Jacksonville would pick. And we have a good idea right now of what we think, but we'll see how it goes. You never know. So let's hop into this. Now, I've got a couple players I trade up for. I want to note that before we get in. I think guys I would consider, most of all these, Rome Odunze is one. If he ends up falling to around pick 10, pick 11, that's a guy I trade up for. I think he's worth a top 10 selection easily. I don't think there's much of a doubt about that, and I think he's a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And he's a really good fit for Jacksonville because you want to have more of a vertical offense, right? Huge thing that we need to focus on. In addition, you want guys that don't drop the ball. And Rome Odunze does not drop the ball. You go watch the film. You go watch him this year. I watched a lot of Washington football. This guy, every time you ask him to step up, he steps up. So absolutely a name we're watching. Dallas Turner is another one. Terry and Arnold as well. Arnold is obviously a need, right? Because you need a cornerback. You can bring up how maybe he's not the best man coverage cornerback. I still think he brings a lot of things you'd love. Still going to be a good fit. As far as Dallas Turner and why I'm considering him and why he might be the pick, and we'll see how it falls. Dallas Turner, he's an outside linebacker, right? There's a lot of things the Jaguars are talking about and doing and are rumored to be doing that point to me that outside linebacker is now becoming a need. The two things I'm talking about primarily. One is to talk about Trayvon Walker putting his hand in the dirt more. And what that means basically is he plays defensive end instead of outside linebacker. Outside linebackers, basically for your difference between the two, they can drop into coverage, usually play in a 2-point stance, which means 2 feet on the ground, hands up by their sides. So kind of the general difference. You could probably go into a lot more detail, but that's the main thing. Trayvon Walker is a much better defensive end. Ryan Nielsen says he's going to put guys in positions that they are best in and they can succeed in. Trent Baalke even alluded to Ryan Nielsen moving Trayvon Walker around. What do we think that means? Probably him playing more defensive end than anything else. So that's what I think happens. If that happens, factor in that the Jaguars have been looking at outside linebackers. They've been looking at Danielle Hunter forever. They tried to get him multiple times. They probably will sign him in free agency for all we know. They're also a team that's been interested in Hassan Reddick. I always say it wrong. It's hard to pronounce for me. But another really good pass rusher, right? They clearly are considering a big upgrade there. They want an outside linebacker. They probably want a long-term starter, someone who's going to be on the field a lot, take over where Trayvon Walker is, while Trayvon Walker moves to the defensive line and reinforces that. I think that's the plan. So Dallas Turner, does he fit that plan? Yes, absolutely he does. So that's a name I'm watching. Might be the pick here, but we'll see how this falls. So we're going to go about 9 picks or so. So we get to the Bears, right? I think we're going to see where things fall after the Jets pick. It's really rich to move up to 9. Rome Odunze would be a really good guy to go get. Okay, hold up. 48 would get it done. Oh, this is tempting. We could get Rome Odunze for the Jaguars. And we need a wide receiver 1. Chicago Bears are on the clock. Now we'll give up 48. That's a lot to give up. But we're going to do it. We're going to do something different here. We're going to get our guy. Rome Odunze. He is my 5th ranked overall prospect. Very talented receiver. Probably the best fit in this entire class for the Jaguars at receiver. Fits everything you need, just like we talked about. This is probably the best trade-up scenario and one that the Jaguars have talked about a lot. Let me reword that. One that the Jaguars have been talked about doing a lot. Not that they've actually said they're going to go do it, because I don't want to get that wrong. They have been linked to Rome Odunze a bit. They interviewed with him at the Combine. They are a team that is looking to trade up for him if he gets within striking range. A pick like this, at number 9, could be striking range. And I think realistically, the Chicago Bears would probably want to take him. I don't know if Trent Baalke gives up enough capital to get the trade done. But he's here at 9, and we're going to get this trade done. And we're going to get a player that you can complain about losing 48, right? Even if we get 111 back. Years down the road, you're going to be happy you have Rome Odunze on your team. You got your wide receiver 1. You're set at that position. You have a player that is going to be there for a long time. So that's the pick. That's our first guy. I'm really happy we got to make that pick. I didn't know if it was going to be there. Ends up being there. Now, what would have been most realistic if we didn't land Rome Odunze? Probably moving up for Dallas Turner. I think if we stayed where we were, Turner probably would have been available at 12 unless the Vikings took him at 11. That's another really good trade-up opportunity, but you're probably giving up 96 in that scenario. Significantly better pick to give up because 48 is a lot, but we're getting a special player, getting one of the best ones in the class. So That's the pick. And we're going to see what's here on the board. I'm just going to wait for 96. I don't think we're going to trade around too much at this point. We're just going to see where the value is. Because, well, we gave up a lot of picks, or a lot of value. So let's see. You got Michael Hall Jr. It's a name we'll talk about. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Cole Bishop, really good safety. Cam Hart could be a really good outside cornerback. He had really good performances against Marvin Harrison Jr., which is where he really stands out. Leonard Taylor's another one. Javon Baker, although obviously we just nailed receiver. Cooper Beebe and Christian Jones. All names I'm looking at close here. But this is going to be a Michael Hall Jr. for me. I think this is a great deal if you can get him at 96. A really good player. Someone who finishes off the interior of the defensive line. Now, just want to say some things about him. Now, Michael Hall Jr. got a lot of crap, right, before the combine because he's a smaller guy. He's not supposed to have a big frame. He was supposed to be 270 pounds coming into the combine. Instead, once you look at these numbers, tell me if they're so much worse, right? Chris Jenkins, 6'3". Michael Hall Jr., 6'2" and 8/10. Basically the same. 9 pounds lighter than Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins is supposed to be 305 coming in. Okay, and I like him a lot. I'm not trashing him at all. 305. Michael Hall Jr. is supposed to be 270. He went from 35 pounds lighter, that was the expectation, to being 9 pounds lighter. He's gotten bigger, which, as you can see, are my primary concerns. It's about the weight, and the weight helps the run defense. It's also the amount of snaps, but not a huge concern for me, especially at this point. 10-inch hands. Some of the biggest hands you have on the interior defensive line. That's going to help him a ton. Wingspan, 81 inches. That's really good. He meets the threshold for the arm size. Every one of these numbers is in the green. And the only reason why he did not test out was because I believe he tweaked his hamstring, so didn't really have the option. We'll see him at Pro Day, and we'll see if he stays here. But definitely going to be my top interior defensive lineman at this point. Someone I'm thrilled to have on the board. The other thing, and why I'm sold on Michael Hall Jr., look at his age. He's not even 21 years old. And one of the things that takes the longest to develop for interior defensive linemen is a pass rush arsenal, pass rush plan. Michael Hall Jr. is one of these guys in this class that has a pass rush plan, that has something built up there to use. That is a lot to ask for. And this is a guy who on some snaps just wins immediately. The Jaguars need someone on the interior who can help in the pass rush desperately. And I think Michael Hall Jr. could play a little bit of defensive end in your 3-4 looks as well. Help out Trayvon Walker there a little bit. You also, of course, are probably going to play him at defensive tackle along with Devon Hamilton in your 4-3 looks. He's going to get on the field a bit. And you could probably start him out as a guy who's probably just a pass rusher. But as he puts on weight, I think he's someone who could start full-time for the Jaguars alongside Devon Hamilton. Be a similar investment, right? I think Devon Hamilton even came out of Ohio State. I'm not going to look that up during this video, but I'm pretty sure he did. You get another guy out of Ohio State if that's the issue. Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, because I might be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure both guys came from the same school. But I see him on kind of a similar trajectory. Guys that are not necessarily incredible coming out of the gates, but got a lot to work with, and I think will be good players with a little bit of development. So that's our second guy, hitting a big need for this team. Now we're going to go a couple picks. I'm going to move up, let's see, after this. So we're going to move up 3 spots. I'm not trading with the Titans. It's like negotiating with terrorists. You just don't do it. There's a guy on this board we're going to talk about on the defensive side of the ball as well. Let's give up, let's do 234. They'll take that. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Another highly regarded prospect of mine. I'll give you guys the overall rankings for these guys, actually. So, first one, I think I showed you. Rome Odunze, number 5 overall. Michael Hall Jr., I believe, is right around 50 for me. Comes in at 45, actually. So this is a guy who would be a good value, I think, even at our second pick in this draft if we still had it. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. comes in at 57. Probably going to move up my board a little bit. I have him behind Cooper Beebe, who is currently still available in this. I would probably regard Jarvis Brownlee Jr. a little bit better. So that'll be something I update. But he does have a strong frame. I know he is 5'10", but this guy is a slot cornerback. He's got decent size for it. Don't let the red fool you here. This is going up against pass rushers. It's basically a range of worst to best. So there's certain positions that they're just screwed in here, right? Like they're never going to be green. You could be really good at something. I mean, it's like how pass rushers, blockers, Christian Jones, it's red here. This is still one of the fastest 40 times for offensive linemen because it's weighing it against everything. If you go to the actual rankings, it changes that. So then you can see here, Christian Jones is in the green. So just context on that. But Jarvis Brownlee Jr., second round pick to me, guy who performed incredibly at the Senior Bowl. Someone who interviewed really well too. The things that Jarvis Brownlee Jr. talks about, prying his game on, they are perfect fits for what Ryan Nielsen wants. I think he is a guy who could come in and be a very good starter right off the bat. And the other thing I like about him, and I try to find in prospects, are guys who can end up kicking outside if you need them to, right? Guys who can do that. Because if you don't get that, then you got to have backups who just aren't on the field at all. And sure, you have Monteric Brown right now. I think it's better when you can knock out two birds with one stone. Because you think about how this would work, right? If Jarvis Brownlee Jr. kicks outside, then you got Antonio Johnson probably coming into the slot more. Andrew Wingard comes onto the field. Does that feel fine? I think it does. So Brownlee Jr. It's going to be our pick. We're going to let this ride out. We're going to see what's on the board here. We got quite a few options. Leonard Taylor's still here. If the original narrative was true with Leonard Taylor, that he is like this super high upside interior defensive lineman, I'd probably still pick him here, even with Michael Hall Jr. gone. Realistically, I would have picked him over Michael Hall Jr. But measurements-wise, like, it's good. I just don't know if he's going to work out like we expect him to in the NFL. I'm not fully convinced on that. I think he's probably going to be okay, but the upside that we talked about at the beginning of this cycle, I don't think it's the same now. I think it's very different. But for this pick, we've got 115, we've got 117. Here's what I'm going to do. We have two very good offensive linemen we could pick at 117. They will probably still both be here on the board. What we have here still, I think this is probably the last guy that would really fit this need. The Jaguars need an outside cornerback, and they need someone good. They need a good starter with Tyson Campbell. Cam Hart. This is a guy who did really well when he played Marvin Harrison Jr. Every time he played him, some of his best games, he rises to the challenge when he plays. He's 6'3", has incredible fluidity, great size. All the tools are there to work with Cam Hart. He is an older prospect. I will say that. I'll find him on my big board. He's another guy I've got to bring up a little bit. He's at 70 right now. He is 23 years old, heading into the draft. But honestly, I'm fine with that. And this is the fourth round. Like, if we get a better starter at some point, it's okay. You have a backup. But I do think that Cam Hart can start for the Jaguars and be a pretty reliable guy. So that's our pick here. Tyke Smith goes off the board, leaves us our choice of player here. We've got Cooper Beebe and Christian Jones. I think between these two, it's very close. But Cooper Beebe is the one I'm more confident in being a reliable starter. I just think he's a good football player. He's been good his whole way through. He's not a guy I've really seen struggle at any point. And, you know, sure, like, he doesn't have the most incredible size. We look at him among offensive linemen. I have him ranked 13th right now. He ends up not having those 33-inch arms, but he's on the interior. Like, this is okay. You can have that. And the hand size, if you're a technician, if you know what you're doing, it's not as big of a deal. I think Cooper Beebe overcomes all these issues. He's still got really good size, but this guy moves well too. Ran a 5.03, which was really shocking to see from him. So I feel really good about him. I think this is a guy you can come in and start immediately for the Jaguars and be a plug and play guy. So he's going to be our pick here. Christian Jones would have been a solid pick too. Also see Trey Benson went off. Just a note on that. He's going to be gone so much earlier than that. I don't even think it's possible he could be here, whereas like Cooper Beebe, who should go earlier, could be. And that's why I skipped over Trey Benson, because I don't think it's even realistic to talk about. Now we got some more options here. Guys to note, Nehemiah Pritchett feels like someone the Jaguars will actually pick. I actually think this is one of the day 3 picks right now. One of the guys getting linked early, similar to Tyler Lacey last year, where we hear a lot of good things between the team and the player. And I think he'll probably be someone who comes to Jacksonville. You've also got Zach Zinner. I think he's a really good guard as well. I view him very similar to Cooper Beebe. Bo Braid, I'm adding him to my big board. I've heard a lot of really good things with him, though. You could also throw out Theo Johnson, but we picked Penn State tight end last year, and I don't want to do that again. I'm just going to be real. I don't think the impact's there. So in this scenario, we have 2 guard spots that are open. Like, we know that right now. And I actually heard something recently from Cooper Beebe that he would consider playing center in the NFL. So you have absolutely the opportunity to pick Zach Zinner and have him as a starter on your team. So that's the easy pick here. I think he should go earlier. I'd be happy picking him, heck, even at the end of the 3rd round. That would be acceptable to me. Zach Zinner is easily going to be the pick for me. Really good football player, maybe not elite, but just another reliable guy on the offensive line with the right demeanor as well. You know, and that's something you get in Cooper Beebe too. So let's see what's on the board. We've got 2 picks left. Frank Gore Jr. would be a fun one at this point. I think he's going to be a pretty good running back. I don't know if he's going to be a guy who can handle a big workload, but that's not a concern of ours. Brandon Coleman, if we had not just picked 2 guards, I would consider Brandon Coleman. I think he could be a developmental tackle, but I think his best spot is guard. He has really good size for that because he's not super tall, right? That's what probably makes him more of an interior guy. But he has long arms. He has big hands. He has all these other things you're looking for. But we've hit that position so hard, I don't think I'd do it here. You also got Zachary Franklin and Terry McLaughlin available. I think both solid players. Zachary would probably be the one that would come closest. But since we've hit receiver, I am just going to go ahead and get a guy I think that fits really well into the backfield. Try to polish off this run game. We'll see if we get Zachary at 211. He'll be my highest rated player. Could also go kicker. It's another option. So I imagine he's available. He ends up being available, and he'll be our shoe-in pick at this point. As far as Franklin, he's an outside receiver. Not huge, but he can play out there. I think he's a solid guy. He's going to come into the NFL, be able to start if you need it. Not, a high upside player, but kind of similar to like Trey Tucker, maybe with more height. Trey Tucker was one last year. I thought when I watched him on film, like, this guy could start. There's no reason why he can't. But Zachary Franklin, kind of the same thing, just the height to play outside. So that's what we got here, guys. Rome Odunze is a Jaguar in this scenario. Great stuff there. Defense, I think you hit things pretty well. I would love to have gotten outside linebacker. The next option for me behind Rome Odunze was getting Dallas Turner, like I said. I think that one's probably just as realistic as Rome Odunze. Not that they're likely, necessarily. I mean, you got to have teams skip on them. But there's a lot more players that could go up and pass up Dallas Turner, right? Jared Verse, Leatu Latu, heck, even Chop Robinson is possible. Although I think that would be stupid. teams might think those things. So Rome Odunze was the guy in this scenario. We get our wide receiver one, feel really good about that. You're not going to regret that trade. Then we hit the defense really hard, hit the defensive line, got a guy to replace Folorunzu Fatukasi, got our slot corner, something we've been missing for a while. Someone with high upside to play there too. Cam Hart, high upside outside cornerback. Worst case scenario, you have a really good backup for a while and someone who could be a spot starter, but someone I think can start for the Jaguars. And then Cooper Beebe, Zach Zinner, two really good guards, not high upside, right? But reliable players that fit the physicality that you want to add to the team. And we finish it off with Frank Gore Jr. Got to pay our homage to Frank Gore and what he's done for this team, scoring getting the first down to get us Trevor Lawrence. We really appreciate that still, even if things haven't gone perfect. And then Zachary Franklin. I think there's a lot of backup receivers on this team that could be going soon. And so getting in Franklin kind of replaces that, brings in the next generation, and I think he could be a backup and a pretty good one as well. So I like this draft. I like what you're able to do. Definitely not a conventional one for me. Often have a lot of different picks than these, but still I think a really good outcome. But that's what I've got for you guys. Next videos are going to be about free agency. So I plan to do offensive fits, defensive fits, and then probably a predictions video before things kick off. And then we'll see what happens Monday, who they sign, who gets signed somewhere else. I'll tell you right now, Calvin Ridley's probably going to be going somewhere else, hopefully not a division rival or the Chiefs. But we'll talk about all that next Monday night. I'll have a live stream up. That'll be fun. Hopefully we won't be miserable, but we'll see. So that's all I've got, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your week. And finally, go Jags.